We are delighted, though, Jetsunma, you could be here. We are really honored. So we are very familiar with the monsoons in this area. For right now, we have clear sky and a sunny afternoon, so we are wishing the same for you as soon as possible. But we welcome you anyway, and hopefully we can go ahead with the session as best as we can. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jetsunma. Can we please request you to open with the aspiration? Again, welcoming Venerable Ruby Courtin also, who is joining us. We're very glad to have you here, Venerable.
Hello, please close your mic.
The opening aspiration. Jetsunma, can you hear me?
Yes. What do you want?
You hear? Okay. You could set the motivation for this session.
Well, our main motivation is that we should all stay interconnected at all times, and may it be so.
Thank you, Jetsunma. That covers it. So I've sent Jetsunma some of the questions, and I think we'll just jump straight in, given our internet connection. Let's see how far we can get with staying connected, Jetsunma. So our first question is regarding the publication of your latest book, Heroic Heart. Why this topic? Of all the books that could have been written, why did you choose this?
Oh, well, you know, it's a book by Thosamling on what is called lojong, or mind training. And this idea of lojong was introduced into Tibet in the 11th century by Dipankara Atisha, and then his subsequent followers wrote many very, very special texts on this subject. So this is a very famous text in Tibetan. It's called the Gyasilalin, meaning the practices of the sons of the victorious ones, i.e. the Buddhas. And it's had many, many commentaries by most of the very great lamas. I've also heard direct commentaries by Delga Khyentse Rinpoche and the Gyalwang Karmapa, and also by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So this is a very, very important text. And why it's important to my mind is that lojong is about taking everything which happens to us in our life, the good and the bad, and especially the adverse circumstances, and using them as the path. It's not about high philosophical views. It's not about, profound Dzogchen realizations. It's about how ordinary people like us with ordinary lives can make use of our life, and everything which happens in our lives and everybody that we meet in our lives becomes aids on the spiritual path. So it's about how to transform our responses, our attitude, not changing external circumstances, but our internal response to those circumstances, so that everything is taken and used for benefiting both ourselves and for benefiting others. So it's a very, very practical teaching. I mean, normally nowadays when one gives talks, it's not to an audience of monks or hermits and yogis. It's to ordinary people with, jobs, families, social life, but who want to do something meaningful and transform themselves. And so this is how to start, by transforming our mind and our attitude. And so my hope whenever I give these talks is that somebody can take something from that and introduce it into their life, how they deal with their difficult family, their difficult work situation, and the many, many problems which everyone is facing daily. How to take that, and it's like yeast in a heavy dough. When you have a heavy dough, then you mix it with some yeast and the whole thing lightens up. We don't throw the dough away. We need the dough, but we need the yeast, and then we can cook it and make something very delicious and nourishing. So the yeast is this way of transforming our normal attitudes towards people and difficult situations. And the heavy dough is our daily life and our daily relationships. So we just need to lighten the whole thing up. That dough, that daily life is the practice. It's not the obstacle to the practice. And this is never more clearly shown than in these wonderful, wonderful texts on how to transform the mind, how to transform our attitude, and take everything and everyone with us onto the path. So that's why I chose it. I mean, in the last few years, most of my talks have been on the various Lojong texts, because I just think they're just so miraculously wonderful, and something which all of us can practice. We don't have to wait until we're 8th level bodhisattvas. So for this reason, that's why the book is about that. This wonderful 37 verses of mind training. So yes, it's. I was just reading a little bit of it myself, and also it includes some of the commentary by Dögo Khyentse Rinpoche. And really, it is really so useful, I would say. So very, very useful for our daily life. For all of us, you know, whether we are Buddhists or not Buddhists, it's very, very excellent advice on how to transform our daily life into our spiritual practice. So that's it.
Thank you, Jetsunma. You just mentioned that you were just reading some of it. Is there a particular part that you would like to share with us?
No, not really. I was just starting it and just reading through to see what it sounds like. And it just strikes me always that it's such wonderful, wonderful common sense. Enlightened common sense, I call it, because it's not so common. But how to really see our life situation from a different perspective, and recognizing that, you know, whatever happens to us, we can really make use of it. Nothing needs to get thrown out. And that's an incredible encouragement for us all, because people complain, I have no time to practice. But once they recognize that every breath we take is a practice, then that transforms our whole attitude towards our life and towards the people we share our life with, the difficult ones as well as the easy ones.
Thank you. Just so that's one of the other questions. The essence of practice is to observe our own mind. Can you offer some advice on how we can go about this without becoming self-obsessed? One of the discussions that we had just prior to this session too was, you know, people were saying, why should I focus on myself when there's so much suffering in the world? I should just go out and help everybody. So how can we justify?
Well, I think Rabina dealt with that yesterday. The fact is that we may have what we think is compassion, but if there's no real wisdom, we often end up creating more problems for ourselves as others. I mean, we all know people who are very good-hearted, and they really dedicate themselves to others, and with very little concern for themselves, with the result that they burn out, and in the end become completely unable to benefit either themselves or others, because there is an imbalance. There is no genuine insight, there's no genuine understanding of how to benefit others as well as benefiting oneself. So that's why I say it's like we have to breathe in as well as breathing out. The two need to balance. If we're only breathing out, then in the end we end up asphyxiated and can't function at all. And likewise if we're only breathing in. But if we get where does it all come from? Our speech and our actions depend on our mind. And as long as our mind is out of control, totally distracted, completely untamed, how much in depth are we able to help others when we ourselves are so messed up? So therefore it makes sense to first get our own house a little bit clean and in order before we start telling everybody else how they should clean their house out, right? So, I mean, the two go together. This is the whole point of Lojong, is that we do our own inner practice to help tame our minds and gradually train the mind, but at the same time, we also use all the circumstances in the outer world, so-called, to refine our bodhicitta, our compassion, and our wisdom. So the two are not opposed to each other. They're two aspects of the same journey. But if we only think about others and we pretend that we're never thinking about ourselves, we are likely in the end either, as I say, to completely collapse or else to make many decisions which we think are very compassionate but turn out to be extremely unskillful and creating a lot of problems for others. So we should be patient, you know. Our minds are so filled with all sorts of unhelpful ideas and projects and aspirations. We need to clarify our own mind in order to understand clearly how to be of benefit to others. I mean, you know all these people who are do-gooding and running around, and most people go, "Ugh," you know, and try to get away. Why is that? Because, you know, they lack genuine compassion. They think it's compassion, but it's really not. It's just a matter of being interfering and wanting control of others. So we have to be skillful. And our skillfulness starts with looking at our own mind and our own motivations and our own responses and you know, checking that they are genuinely skillful. Anyway, you know, it's a joy. I mean, as Rabina was saying yesterday, it's not something you just overnight is like that. You know, it takes time. Like any skill, it takes practice. We always talk as Buddhists about practice, right? But that's exactly what it is, right? Our performance is not great, but we're practicing, right? That's what it's all about. Practice, practice, practice. And as they say, practice makes perfect, but not overnight.
Thank you, Jetsunma. And just to let people know, so I'm going through a list of questions that we submitted to Jetsunma earlier, but if you want to raise your electronic hand, if we have time, you can also take live questions from the audience, and you can also put them into the chat. Jetsunma, one of the verses which I'm putting into the chat here for everyone to take a look at relates to in my native land, waves of attachment to friends and kin surge, hatred for enemies rages like fire, the darkness of stupidity, not caring what to adopt or avoid thickens. To abandon my native land is the practice of a bodhisattva. How do we relate to this verse, Jetsunma, without abandoning or distancing ourselves emotionally from our loved ones?
And number 5 goes along with that.
Can you please speak more to the distinction between attachment and love? And how can we recognize attachment in our lives and not use it to become indifferent?
So, I mean, the point is that, I don't know, to my mind, this verse is dealing with these 3 poisons, right, which sit at the base of our distorted consciousness, ever ready to take possession of our thoughts and our emotions and our actions. So, since we have grown up within the family, you know, we are therefore easy to have very negative habitual responses like anger or attachment which we wouldn't display towards visitors or people we don't know very well. Within the family, it brings up a lot of very heavy emotions, much more than people coming from outside would do. So our problem here that they're bringing up is that we mistake attachment and love. And we think they're the same. So, I mean, this is something which comes up again and again and again. Normally, I would give like a butterfly analogy, right? So you have a beautiful butterfly sitting on your hand. And you think that butterfly is very beautiful. You love that butterfly, how beautiful it is, all iridescent wings and so beautiful, so fragile. So then you think, oh, don't worry, butterfly, I'm going to protect you. I love you so much, and you are mine, and I will look after you. And then we go, there you are, butterfly, you're safe now. And we've killed the butterfly. Right? That clinging is actually the opposite of what the Buddha meant when he talked about love. The one problem is that in English, we only have the word love, right? I love ice cream. I love, I don't know, going for walks. I love beautiful flowers. I love my children. I love my family. I love watching action movies. I mean, all the I love ice cream and I love my children are very different emotions. As is, I love my girlfriend, to I love my children. That's a different emotion too. And yet we have only this one word. In other languages, and certainly in Sanskrit and Tibetan and Asian languages, there are many, many words for love, all very, very distinct. And the word for I love ice cream is very, very different from I love meditation or I love all sentient beings. Right? It's a very, very different word and doesn't give you the same idea at all. In English, the problem is that we use this one word. So attachment, I mean, again, attachment means I love you and I rely on you to make me happy. So I want you. Whereas genuine love says, I love you and I want you to be happy. Whether that includes me or doesn't include me is not the point. My happiness is in your happiness. Right? It's a very different emotion to I love you, therefore I want you to make me happy. Right? Which is this grasping mind, which is exactly what the Buddha said was the cause of our suffering. So it's not cold, it's not indifferent. The Buddha talked all the time about love and compassion, but genuine love and compassion, which is wishing the well-being of others, wanting them to be happy, whatever we can do to make them happy, then that is our happiness. My happiness is in your happiness, not in you being able to make me happy. So it's a very different, and for families, and especially for mothers with children, it's a very important point, because so often parents think they own the children, and therefore the children should do what I want them to do. But that's not love. I mean, I don't know how we ever managed to think it was. That's control. That's attachment. That's clinging. And it brings suffering to the offspring and to the parent when there is any opposition. So that's why it's not the love which causes the problems. It's our grasping, clinging mind that creates the problems. And so genuine love is like the sun shining, just shines everywhere. And it's not asking that we should appreciate it. And it doesn't own anything. It just shines because that's its nature, to shine. So genuine love is like that. It just shines. And it doesn't shine on this one and not on that one. It just shines. And whoever stands in the sun's light will get the sun rays. If you close the door and close the windows and you say it's dark, then that's not the fault of the sun. But the sun doesn't feel it owns its light and its warmth. It's just its nature. So all these meditations on loving kindness and well-being and compassion, etc., is to open our heart from being so closed and restricted to really allow our natural goodness, which is there within us all, to be released and shine out. This is why the Buddha said you start with yourself, then those you love, those you're indifferent towards, those you find hard, and then all beings in general. But he said you start by, he said, just as a mother loves her child or any child, so that selfless love which a mother feels for the child, that she, if the child is sick, she would give anything, including her own life, for the life of that child, that openness, but without the desire to grasp. That's our challenge. And that's a challenge for all family members, especially parents and couples in relationships. How to love without wanting to possess. So, that's our challenge, okay?
So maybe this leads into the next question, because as we listen and hear in the question, as we read these slogans and when we think about them, it all makes sense, and we recognize that to behave otherwise is ridiculous. But how do we remember the teachings in a crisis? And what happens when the proverbial hits the fan, either short term or long term, if we've got complicated lives?
Well, again, the point is patience and perseverance, right? I mean, our habitual tendencies, right, that are accustomed to becoming angry and upset and revengeful when we meet adverse people and adverse circumstances. That we're programmed ourselves through countless lives to do that. Our neural pathways lead straight to irritation, annoyance, depression when anything opposes me, my sense of I, and what I want, right? So we have to retrain our minds. I mean, that's all. We have to retrain our minds to make a new response. We have to make a new pathway. I mean, that's why it's called practice, right? I mean, if we want to, it's not enough just to think, oh, wow, that's a great idea. Yes, wow, these Lojong slogans are fantastic. And then think that, that's going to change anything. Because in itself, yes, that's beginning to open up the door a crack. But then what? We are already habitually responding in the way we have always responded. So we have to train, right? This is all a training program. So we can start with easy situations, things which annoy us a little bit, but not tremendously. And then we can practice responding more skillfully to those, not getting irritated when our computer does things it shouldn't do, and or the weather isn't what we want it to be, or somebody says something we didn't want to hear. Simple things we can practice. Watch our unskillful response coming up, recognize it, accept that's what we're doing, and then change it, right, into a skillful response, right? So then gradually then we become more, it's like working out, you start on small weights and then you work up to bigger weights as your muscles become more strong. So likewise, as we deal with little situations and very knowingly transform our response into a skillful response, gradually it works up to when something really very difficult comes, we find almost to our surprise that we are actually responding quite skillfully. We are not getting upset, we are not getting enraged, we are not getting into a fury. We actually are looking at the situation calmly and deciding how to deal with that situation and bring it onto the path. So that's the point, right? I mean, like if we want to become a musician, we don't start off with Beethoven or Rachmaninoff. We start off with simple scales, right? And then very simple pieces. And then gradually, as our fingers begin to understand how to play the instrument, how to use the instrument skillfully, we work our way up. But we have to start from where we are. And to start with some modesty, with some humility, to recognize that mostly our responses are not skillful. But this is helping us to learn, to train, to become spiritual athletes, all in good time. So, patience, perseverance, that's the name of the game.
Thank you, Jetsunma. So, Jetsunma, we've got one that's come in the chat. Maybe if Tsunma Pauldron could read it, because it was also asked yesterday to Venerable Rabina, and we didn't have time to answer it.
I hope it's not one of those obscure ones which Venerable Rabina answered so skillfully. I don't think I'd manage that.
I don't see the question, Aileen. It said...
You sent to me as a direct message. Yeah. Just a moment, I'll send it to you.
What does Venerable think about everyone being affected by COVID at the same time? Is this collective karma of the entire world population?
Well, who knows? I don't know. I'm not a Buddha. So I cannot say, yes, this is world karma, or no, this is not world karma. Who knows? But in general, the world has not been making awfully skillful karma recently, or even in the past. I mean, where are we making skillful karma? And one of the things I feel, I mean, this is my personal view, so this is not, Buddha Vachana. This is not the word of the Buddha, this is the word of Tenzin Palmo, is that all the worldwide experiments on animals for medical research and all the millions and millions of innocent living beings who are sacrificed and often tortured and killed in the name of human medical advance, I don't think that's making very good karma for the health of the human race. I mean, how can we expect that we are going to be healthy and well when we have based that on the suffering, sickness and death of all these beings who have never done us, as far as we can know now in this lifetime, any particular harm? I mean, we're creating a lot of negative karma just on the point of view of health. So I think as we cure one kind of epidemic, another one's going to come. Because we are not creating the causes and conditions for good health. So if it's not one thing, it's going to be something else. Some unknown, germ or virus or something which we've never seen before. But it's going to be endless because we are just simply not creating the causes and conditions for health. Just directly with just those, beings who are being sacrificed on our behalf without asking them if they feel like being sacrificed. So who knows, but I don't think that there's going to ever be an end to these problems. They're going to come up in many, many different forms for as long as we as human beings are acting so totally unskillfully and causing so much suffering to our own species and to all the other species and the whole planet itself. I mean, really, we are unbelievably stupid beyond words. And we consider ourselves Homo sapiens, but where is the sapiens? Really, we don't even learn from our mistakes. So I don't know about, whether it is general karma or what, but I do feel that we are endlessly planting the seeds for future disaster for ourselves and the planet, unless we very, very quickly wake up, which is highly unlikely.
There was another question in the chat. What does it mean by taking or going for refuge?
Well, going for refuge is the entry into the Buddhist path. It stems from the time of the Buddha himself. After people met with the Buddha and he gave them a discourse, then at the end, many of the traditional discourses say that from now until life's end, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. So in other words, we recognize ourselves as refugees. Refugees are escaping from danger. They're escaping from a situation which is so insupportable that they try to escape to a safe place, a place that they can trust, a place where they will be able to feel at ease and no longer feel persecuted. And so the idea is that we are, all of us, trapped in this terrible situation, which in Buddhism is called samsara, and here we all are. We have no, what are we going to do? How are we going to get out of it? We are all caught in old age, sickness, death, the impermanence of everything, the underlying dissatisfaction and the insecurity, because, if nothing else happens to us, at least we all know we're going to die. And in the meantime, we don't know what's going to happen. Today we're okay, tomorrow we find we've got cancer. We don't know. Today we're with our loved ones, tomorrow they die. Who do we know? We don't know. This world is very, very insecure. Where can we find safety? And so the Buddhist solution is we find safety in what is called the three jewels. The Buddha, because of his great wisdom and compassion, he showed the path. What is the path? The path is the Dharma. And then the Sangha are those who act as guides on the path. The Sangha means the community. The fourfold community is of monastics and lay people of both genders. But especially it means the Arya Sangha, those noble ones who have actually had a genuine perception of the nature of reality, of how things really are. Because our problem is not out there, our problem is in our own minds. That we are so deluded that we just do not see things how they really are. And as a result, we are overwhelmed by negative emotions like anger and greed and jealousy, envy, fear. So many people so anxious nowadays, and they don't know where to look for security. So the three jewels are regarded, it's like if you're saying everybody's sick, we're all suffering from this terminal illness. But the Buddha is like a doctor, like a supreme physician, and he says, you're sick, but good news, you are inherently healthy. You just need to follow this path this is the remedy here. If you take this medicine and you follow this health regime, you will regain your inherent good health again. So don't worry. But in the meantime, you should know you're really very sick. And so that's the point, that we recognize we have problems, that this world we live in is so insecure. We just don't know. And we try to make everything very secure with, bigger houses and more relationships and everything, trying to make it look very cozy. But in fact, it doesn't work. And so then we recognize the real problem is within our own hearts, within our own mind. The problem and the solution is all within us. And basically the Buddha showed a very, very, very clear path. He didn't just say, yes, you should be liberated, he showed you how. He didn't just say you should have a good heart, he showed us how. This is, to my mind, is the wonder of the Buddha, that he was so clear on how we can liberate our hearts and in that way help to liberate the hearts of all others. So we go for refuge. That's the point, is that we feel here is a port of safety that we can trust. It won't let us down. And that within the three jewels is our genuine home, our genuine security. So in all Buddhist schools throughout the Buddhist world, the first step, the opening the door to the palace of all the teachings, is taking refuge in the Buddha, his teaching, and the community that follows those teachings. Step number 1.
Thank you, Jetsunma. So Jetsunma, and the next question in what I've said to you, and I think this maybe refers, or at least it came to my mind as you were speaking about, what we're doing to so many other sentient beings with experimentation and so on. So this question, with the 7 points of cause and effect, which is another Lojong text, I can do all of the steps except the first one of recognizing all beings as our mothers. I can't believe that we've had many, many lives from beginningless time and beginningless rebirths until now. Oh, sorry, I can believe. I can also believe that we would have needed many mothers to make this happen. But I've trouble believing that all sentient beings have been my mother, as we can be reborn to the same bunch of mothers again and again and again all the time. How do I fix this view?
Well, the reason why, it could have been all sentient beings have been my brother, or all some sentient beings have been my auntie, or anything you want. But the mother is chosen because we would not have an embodied existence if it were not for our mother. So whether our mothers were good mothers or difficult mothers, without our mothers we wouldn't be here. And so therefore, tremendous gratitude to our mother for giving us birth. How very, very kind. And of course, during the time when we were babies, you think about babies. What do babies do? Well, they eat, they shit, they cry a lot, they keep us awake at night, they go glug, 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 and then they smile, and mother's heart melts, and she thinks, oh, my darling, and she would do anything for that baby. She would give her life for the baby. The baby does nothing except take. It doesn't give much at that point. But the mother loves it. She doesn't throw it out and say, wow, you're really a nuisance. You keep me awake all night and you don't do anything for your keep. Out you go. Mother loves the baby. And so this idea that the mother gives us the most unselfish love, it's possible. At a time when we don't even mostly remember. But mothers, it could be a spider's might be our mother, in which case you've got hundreds and hundreds of babies. Or fish who have thousands of babies. I read the other day that rats, a female rat can give birth to 5,000 babies in 1 year. So, we don't have to always think of it as mother with mother, one mother, one baby. It might be billions of babies she's giving out birth to. But that entity got its birth through the mother, even if it was only as a herring or a spider. I was looking in the book and it mentioned how I'd seen this scorpion mother, and on her back were all these little baby scorpions. Each little perfect, tiny, little perfect little scorpion, all riding on mummy's back. You don't think of the scorpion as being especially, a caring mother, but there you go. So whether or not in literal fact all sentient beings have been our mother is not the point. The point is that we are far more interconnected with all the beings on this planet than we can possibly imagine. And just as we, through countless lives in the past, in the present, and in the future, we are all very deeply interconnected. And just as we would not wish for our own mother, hopefully, to suffer, and we would definitely wish for our mother to be well and to be free from suffering, and if we have any sense, we are deeply grateful that she gave us birth. Likewise, we can think we have that interconnection with all the beings, we just don't remember. We don't even remember who we were ourselves in our last life. If we met ourselves in our last life, we wouldn't know who's that. When it comes to our next life, we wouldn't recognize that being, whatever it is. Who is that? We don't even recognize the same mind stream and the same karmic connections. So what to speak of other beings and their close connection to us in past lives? But just as we would wish well for our mother in this life, therefore we should feel that sense of gratitude to all the other beings and the interconnection which we had with them in last lives. So many past lives we cannot even conceive that we don't remember. So it's just a method, a skillful way of helping us to feel a connection and not think that all these other beings, because I don't know them in this lifetime, therefore they're not important to me. Because maybe in past lives they were the most important being in our lives. We just don't remember anymore. Okay? I mean, all the people who are so close to us in this lifetimes, maybe we knew them before, maybe we didn't.
Thank you, Jetsunma. And I've just had another question coming in the chat directly relating to that, where, and this is a common experience when so many mothers don't love and don't do anything for their babies.
They gave them life. They didn't abort them. If you are here, it's because your mother bore you for 9 months in her womb and gave birth to you. She did not abort you. No matter what happened afterwards, the fact is she gave you life. And for that you can never repay your gratitude, no matter what you do. So whatever came after that, well, that's her problem, because maybe she or herself had a very difficult life for herself. We don't know. But the fact is that nonetheless, here you are, directly because of your mother. Your father's contribution was minimal. I mean, important, but very transitory. But what your mother did for you, you can never repay.
Thank you, Jetsunma. So should we go on to another in the list? How does one see and then address, this is number 9, self-cherishing mind for what it is? My query stems from confusion over what is legitimate, that is, siblings behaving badly in the past and hence hurting me, and what belongs to an old narrative in which I'm the victim.
Well, I mean, as to siblings who did bad things to you in the past, you could ask yourself what you did to those siblings in another life, that in this lifetime they should come back and cause you problems. So it's not just this lifetime and our grudges against other people being unfair to us. Because why are they unfair to us? What did we do to them that now in this lifetime we get the retribution? That's karma. Right? So stop feeling sorry for yourself and appreciate that your siblings are giving you a wonderful opportunity to develop genuine love and compassion and practice lojong, in fact. If you don't have people who annoy you, upset you, and who you feel, grudges against, you have no one to practice with. So far from regarding them as being a problem, you should recognize that they're your great opportunity. That's the whole point. That the people that we think are our main obstacles are really our greatest opportunity to transform our mind and our attitude. Your attitude is all wrong, it's hurting you, it doesn't hurt them. So what's the point? Doesn't make you better, doesn't make you happier, doesn't cause them any problems at all. So what you need to do is to look at that attitude, see how it's not being in the least bit helpful, and how, on the contrary, you can make it helpful by using it to transform your attitude. So in that case, you can be very grateful to your siblings for giving you the opportunity. If we don't have anybody we don't like, we have no one to work with. So, good. Thank you, siblings.
There's a lot of questions coming in, Jetsunma, that are similar to this, about how do we forgive someone who continue. I'll just quickly flick through, and this will be the last one. And I can see your hand up, Diane, and I have a message, but we'll just stay with this for a second. How do we forgive someone who continually hurt us? How do we be more compassionate while having a boundary? And how do we handle the feeling of resentment towards the mother for being the life bringer of ourselves into samsara, as if we hadn't answered, and we're suddenly here suffering? And then one other question related was about how should we have distance from loved ones who are pushing all our buttons? When does nourishing oneself become a selfish thing?
Well, along with all of this wonderful teaching on transforming our negative emotions into positive emotions and reforming our responses to difficult situations, we do still have to carry on some common sense, right? For example, last night we were watching that wonderful documentary on the Great 14th about His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Now, when the Chinese were getting too much, he didn't just say, well, I'm going to sit here and cultivate loving kindness and compassion. He escaped into India because he could see that merely having loving kindness and compassion to the Chinese wasn't going to solve the problem, and he had the responsibility for all his people, which he couldn't carry out if he remained in Lhasa. So he left, right? He used his common sense. So all of us have our common sense, right? And so therefore we should, yes, we should try to cultivate the qualities on the path. But a lot of these instructions are intended for, very high-level bodhisattvas, how we should act if we were high-level bodhisattvas, how a high-level bodhisattva would act. But we are not, on the whole, high-level bodhisattvas or even little incipient bodhisattvas, so we have to use our common sense. And if, for example, we are in a family situation where the family really are overwhelming, then it doesn't hurt to create a distance and meantime work on more difficult, on less difficult situations until we feel we have gained enough inner strength to try to deal with the family situation once more from a more, a more transformed point of view. But while we're still caught in the middle of it, it might be too difficult for us. So, we have, if you're in an abusive situation and you have like a partner who's always getting drunk and coming and beating you up, it's very stupid just to sit there saying, may all beings be well and happy. You have to do something, right? Even Tara has her woeful aspects. And so it's not that we are naive and stupid, right? We have to look at our own capacity. How much can we manage at this particular time? As I said, you don't, presume you can play Beethoven just because you want to play the piano. You start with smaller, easier pieces until you work your way up. So like that, But as to the mother, she gave you life, and stop complaining. All these beings in the spirit realms would give anything for a human life, no matter how difficult it may be. That is going to be your practice, to take the difficulties of your life and transform them. The difficulties are not really out there. The difficulties really are in our own mind. And if we don't if we don't forgive, then who is suffering? It's not the person we don't forgive who is suffering, it's us that are suffering. So we are just we are doing to ourselves what only our worst enemy would wish for us. How stupid is that? So, you've got to get to work on it. I mean, whoever is the person who you particularly resent and you feel angry towards, that is your greatest gift. Because that is the one you're going to work on until finally you can release and let it go. And then this whole energy comes up of joy, which has been suppressed because you've kept it in the cage of your resentment. So that person, the object of your resentment, is going to be your greatest spiritual friend if we approach it skillfully.
That's a beautiful note to finish on, Jetsunma. Thank you so much. I'm going to spotlight Thosamling again, and I will also bring up Venerable Rubina, because it's a rare opportunity to have you all here. So Tenzin Kaldrunla, I hand over to you.
Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart to both of you for being here. I mean, it has been a very, very special weekend, and we have a lot to chew on, to really work on and transform our minds. Thank you.
Thank you,
for being
Padrinla.
here, both of you. Yeah, thank you.
And we're also very grateful for the Jetsunma for your opening aspiration today, which I think sustained us. The internet held strong. So can we please request you to dedicate Jetsunma?
Yes, I mean, truly, may all this coming together of all of us to listen to the Dharma, may it ignite in our hearts, may it transform our hearts, because this is the beginning and the end of the path is within us. And so even if we take one spark of all you've heard throughout the weekend and really cultivate it, then that spark will set light to the flame within our heart. And that flame will then illuminate beyond itself to benefit many, many beings. You never know who you're going to benefit. When we meet with people throughout the day and throughout our lives, who knows when that spark will light up something within them too. So really, as all in Buddhist schools we all say, may all beings be well and happy. And from our heart, we wish that. May all beings, everywhere, in all levels of existence, finally be well and be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you so much, Jetsunma and Venerable Rubina, and to all the team.
Yes,
And
thank
please
you
live
all,
on.
thank you all. And thank you Tenzin Sangmo too for setting it all up. And thank you Aileen for carrying it on. Wonderful. Lovely to see you, Rubina.